Ready to go, Jenny?
All good, Jim. All yours.
Okay.
Ngā mihi.
Kia ora, everyone. Shane, could I ask you to open our meeting today?
Good morning. Anō rere kei ngā mātua, kei ngā kanohi o nā takiwā, tēnei rā timihi atu, o tira kia koutou nā kai kaunihera, o tira te kai koro matua, tēnā hoki koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. He karakia hei whakao tūwhera i tō tātou hū. Nuku lulangi luana te iho tiki tiki ora. He mātakataka kai tani wa hea awha kai ariki. Ngana ki tawhito tarangi e tū nei. He ngana riri te ngana, he ngana taua, te ngana ko ueue, nuku ko ueue rangi te tūngia. Te kawaru rā, o te hautonga e hau mai. Toki nui, toki ro, toki ta ha, toki tā wahia. Ka whanātua, ka hahau i te takapū o rangi e tū nei, ka hinga ka mate. Whakataka te hau ki te muri, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Whakataka te hau, mā kina kiu takia mā taratara ki tai. Kia hia ke te atākura, e tio, he huka, he hauhunga. Turu ofiti whakamaua kia tīna. Tēnā. Hui e. Tā
kie.
Kia ora, Shane. Before we, well, to start the meeting, we've got the apology. So, and as you've heard, we've got an apology from Graham Webber, who's not well at the moment. So, if everyone's happy, I'll accept Graham's apology. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Andrew and Bill, thank you very much. All those in favour?
Aye.
Might be easier to wave than try and turn off your mute button. So, well, kia ora everyone. And look, a very warm welcome, Dominic, and sorry about that, and Gabriel. I got a notice came up on my screen. Sorry about that. So look, with a couple of new members, is it appropriate to just quickly whip around the screen and introduce ourselves? I'm Jim Milcrease, Mayor of Waipa District, have been for 8 and a little bit years, but I grew up around Waipa. Did all my schooling at Te Awamutu College, and then went away to Wellington and Auckland for a while. But early in the mid-70s, I came back to work for Waipa County Council in those days. So all my working career has been around this district, and have a real close affinity for everything about Waipa. So yes, with that, I'll if I go around my screen, is that the appropriate way? And if it's not matching yours, I hopefully haven't missed anyone out. But Jim, your top left-hand corner of mine.
Kia ora tātou. Raukaua te iwi, manga tautari te marae, ko kairau kere me te tōku ingo. Born in Parawela, went away and I come home after about 50 years, so I'm here. Tēnā tātou.
Kia ora, Jim. Marcus, going left to right.
Kia ora, I'm Marcus. I grew up in Korokanui. Yeah, with our families been in the Waipa region for a long time.
Thanks, Marcus. Dominic.
Kia ora, ko Dominic Tumoana Vals tuku ingoa. I have recently moved into the district. This was the home of my grandfather, the Emery whānau. So I'm from Te Kōpua Marae, just beside Kakipuku Maunga, and I'm very privileged to be part of this. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Dominic. Andrew.
Yeah, kia ora everyone. Born and bred at Wharepapa South. Lived in the district for all but about 10 years of my life when I was in Wellington. My family's been in Waipa for 100 years or so, I guess. And I'm the chair of finance at the council, elected at the same time as Jim. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Andrew. Bill.
Tēnā koutou katoa, Bill Harris, Taku Ingoa, here on behalf of the Ngāti Apakura Runanga Trust and serve as the chairperson for that trust. I keep saying I'm a kihi boy, and you can take the boy out of kihi, but you can't take kihi out of the boy. So kia ora, Harold.
Kia ora, Bill.
Kia ora, Jim.
Yeah. Gabriel.
Kia ora koutou. Gabriel Morgan tuku ingoa. I was born and bred on the banks of the Waipa River. I represent Maniapoto Māori Trust Board.
Kia ora, Gabriel. Susan.
Morena, everybody. I'm Susan O'Regan. I chair our Strategic Planning and Policy Committee. I'm a second-time councillor. I'm a Waipa girl born and bred, raised on the swamps in Rukihia. Spent a bit of time around the country, learning lots of things at universities, but didn't really learn much about New Zealand, which is at university, but not much about New Zealand. So yeah, here I am. And I've really enjoyed my time learning from all of you around here. So thank you.
Thanks, Susan. Kia ora. Gayleen.
Nei rā te mehi kia koutou I tēnei ata, kia koe shei, mō te karaki e te ata nei. Hore no, ko Gary Roberts au, te chairmana o nā iwi tōpu o Waipa, e te puaka au I runga I te marae o Parawera. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Gayleen. Hazel. You're still on mute, Hazel. No, we're still not getting you. Shall we come back? Sorry, Hazel.
I think most of us know Hazel now.
Yeah, well, yeah. But she's going to want to be saying something during the day. Bye.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ki a koe hoki shei ngā mihi ki a koe I whakatū whera I tā tātou hui, kia nei, and to our kaumātua anō tēnā kōrua, Jims. I represent Pirikiriki Marae. We're fortunate not to be within the Waipa boundary, but because most of our people come outside the boundary anyhow, and a lot of live in Waipa area where we participate within the Waipa District Council. I grew up in Piromia. I was a papish. I think I can remember Marcus from school days at Te Amiriti College. I live amongst Ngāti Wairere, my husband's people. Tēnā koutou katoa.
Sure. Bye. Harold.
Morena tātou. Harold Mani Boto no Mangatoa tō marae. I ki pēnei e te o ngā ahika mana whenua tēnei takiwa. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora.
Kia ora, Harold. Hazel, have you got your mute button working? No. Sorry, Hazel. Shane.
Tēnā tātou katoa I tēnei ata, rere atu nei nā mihi kia koutou e aku kaumātua, ngā rangatira, whakawhaiti mai nei ki runga I tēnei o tātou papa, mai te kōrero hia nā kaupapa. Nō rere mihana kia koutou huri noa, te kaumātua Jim e mihana kia koera. O tira te kaunihera, ngā kai kaunihera, te koro matua, tēnā koutou. Nei rā hoki rā te mihi kia koe Dominic Tumuana, au tira kia koe Gabe Haremai. Haremai whakatata mai rā ki tō tātou pāpai. Tēnei o nā huarahi whakawhiti whakaaro, whakawhiti kōrero. Nō reira Haremai te mana, Haremai te he, Haremai te kōrero. Shane Teruki, Iwi Relations Advisor. also hailing from the Rohe, neath the shadow of Kakepuku and my feet dabbling in the Waipa River. With my sights confirmed out there to Puawhe to Pirongia. Within short hailing distance of Whare Te Kaua, Apakura, and any number of our Manoa Whenua collectives, but today representing Waipa District Council as our iwi Relations Advisor. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora, Shane. Kirsty.
Tēnā koutou katoa no Gisborne Ahau, ko Mangatotri Timona Whakaruru Hau, ko Waikato Tiawa Ireriana, ko Kirsty Downey Taka Ingoa. I'm the Group Manager of Strategy here at Waipa District Council. Kia ora.
Kia ora,
Kia ora, Kirsty. Chuck.
That was me.
Yeah, sorry, Chuck. Yeah, you're looking too comfortable sitting there.
Kia ora anō tātou, e te koromātua, tēnā koe, tēnā rā koe, Shane, the kaikarakia, rauranga tira mā, ko tēnei te mihi. No Toki Kapu te marae, ko Manipoto te tangata, ko Chuck Davis tōku ingoa, te takawaenga o Waipa District Council. Kia ora koutou.
Kia ora, Chuck.
Kia ora, Chuck.
Gary.
Kia ora koutou, ko Gary Knighton tōku ingoa. I'm Strategic Partnerships Manager at Waipa District Council. I'm a Wairoa boy, born and bred, who married a Cambridge girl and never managed to escape.
Kia ora, Gary. So we've got Renee. You're hiding off screen, but there's somebody under the name.
Kia ora koutou. Renee Tuku Ingoa. I am the Compliance and Improvement Team Leader here at Waipa as part of the Water Services team. So I will talk to you very shortly with a bit of an update from the Water Services. So kia ora everybody.
Kia ora, Renee. And Joe?
Kia ora koutou. Joe Cook-Munro Toku Ingoa. I'm the Senior Policy Advisor for the District Plan. I am half Scottish, linking back to Glasgow in Scotland, and half Kiwi, linking back to Greymouth and Hokitika.
Thanks, Joe.
Good to meet you all.
Kia ora, Joe.
Kia ora. And hiding under the Governance Officer banner, I suspect there's Jenny and Claire there. Is that right?
It is, Jim. Yeah. Kia ora tātou, ko Jenny Nemaya aho. I have been working at Waipa District Council for over 10 years and in the privileged position now as Governance Advisor. Kia ora.
Thanks, Jenny. Claire.
Kia ora. And I started with governance last year. Both my kids have been brought up in Te Amuru and attended all the schools, and my husband is from Waipa. Nice to meet everybody.
Kia ora, Claire.
Kia ora.
Well, thanks for that. It took a bit of time, but hopefully Dominic and Gabriel, that gives you a bit of an idea of where everybody fits in around the screen, but really look forward to working with you over the next period of time, I suppose. I was going to say short time, but I hope it's a long period of time. So, but look, a very warm welcome, and I hope you enjoy the meeting and we can make some progress. So thank you very much for your attendance. Item 2 on the agenda is any disclosures of members' interests. Have we got any conflicts of interest or members' interests around the table? I see shaking heads, so everybody's okay there. So there's no disclosures. Were there any late items that anybody wished to bring up that are not on the agenda?
Your Worship, there are a couple of items raised at Nawi Tōpu on Monday that I think members wanted to have just a discussion on. One was around treaty training for councillors, and I think Three Waters was also another item that was I think there was wanting to at least some feedback on. I think Three Waters will be covered under the Waters report, but I think possibly we might be able to cover off the treaty training as part of the Nawi Tōpu or chair's report.
Okay. So we'll make.
Sorry, Jim.
Yeah.
The other one was Naruto.
Oh, sorry.
Wairoto,
right.
as we would prefer it.
Naruto. Okay, so I've got those 3 items down as late items. If the first 2 are not covered off in the agenda items, then we can get back to those at the end of the meeting, and then some discussion around Naruto bill. Yep, thank you for that. All right, so with those, someone happy to move those late items? Can we have a mover and seconder?
Right.
Yeah, Bill and the seconder. Oh, Hopai. All those in favour?
Aye.
Contrary, carried. Thank you for that. So the confirmation of the order of the meeting as in the agenda, unless somebody needs to leave early and
Your Worship, just note that for the spatial plan item, we'll need to commence that by about 11:45 at the latest for that. So if we're running late, we may need to bring that one forward.
Which item was that, Gary?
The spatial plan.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. I'll keep an eye on it. Hopefully we're not 11:45. Okay.
Just through the chair.
Yes, Kayleen.
So in the item 6 on the agenda, which is the Naruto Waipa Chairperson's verbal report, so is there an opportunity of opening up that to the marae to the representatives around the table?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so with those potentially minor changes, we'll take the confirmation of the order as it is on the agenda. Then we have the minutes of the meeting. Oh, it's December. I think that's supposed to be December 2021. Yeah, of the 1st of December 2021. So can I have a mover and seconder to receive those minutes? Yeah, Marcus and Andrew. All those in favour?
Aye.
Contrary. So were there any items in the in those minutes that people wanted that are not covered again today, but any items from an accuracy point of view or anything that people wish to comment on? I hope I.
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor. I'm looking at page 17, but it's number 4 on the items in the agenda from that meeting. It's to do with Wallace Terrace. The Wallace Terrace renewals. It talks about while the renewals were being done, that there is archaeological oversight and an iwi representative on site to monitor all the construction works. I'd just like to have confirmation of that, please.
Yeah, Rennie, are you able to help there?
I could comment, Jim. We had we had George Griggs's brother on site for the whole of the process. So, kia ora.
Thank you very much. Kia ora.
Yep. Okay. So moving through page 4, 5, 6, and 7. So there's no other comments on those minutes. So can we just have someone confirm their true and correct record, please? Mover. Andrew and Marcus, all those in favour? Aye.
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 Any contrary? Carried. Thank you for that.
Excuse me, through you, Your Worship, if we can please just have a resolution for the order of the meeting, that would be great. I think we overlooked that.
Oh, okay.
Apologies. So just
no, that's all right. We just didn't, we all agreed, but we didn't have a mover and seconder.
That's right. We need a resolution. Thank you.
Thanks, Kirsty. So ducking back up to item 4, could I just have a mover and seconder for the confirmation of the order of the meeting? Harold and Dominic, thank you for that. All those in favour?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried. Thank you. Item 6, Naruto or Waipa, Chairperson's verbal report. Galen and anyone else that wishes to make comment?
Can we just open it up to the table?
Absolutely.
I'm not sure whether we can raise the Te Kawa discussions that we're currently having, or whether Ngāti Inu wants to raise it.
I'm looking for someone that's wishing to
Which
comment.
is Dominic.
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 Sorry.
They put me on the spot there.
Yes.
I think it's something because the discussions are still being sorted between Iwi Tōpua Waipa, not quite prepared to bring it to this forum at the moment. Thank you, Galen.
Thanks, Dominic.
The issues around it, though, to you, is that Ngāti Tōpū is dealing with a number of cultural significant sites within the district, and they're actually coming pre-consent. So in doing that, it creates another process of discussions outside of what the administration role of Ngāti Tōpū originally was. But I'm just wanting to raise it because it will be of interest to some of the councillors around the table that there are discussions occurring within the Waipa area around significant sites. And one of them is Te Kawa. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we're just awaiting that discussion. Galen, is that where we're sitting, Dominic? Just at the moment, just not ready to bring it forward, or is there something?
That's where we're sitting with that one. And then this morning I have another one which has an impact on Hingakaka.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's yeah. So that's another one. But we've been we're getting inundated with a number of people who are doing pre-consent discussions. But we ourselves have to work out how do you deal with that, because that's way outside of the administration that we undertook with the council.
Okay, so just for my clarification, people are coming to you, but before they lodge their application in a pre-application format, and
Yes.
there's no.
Yes, there's no application. So, and because and to an extent, it's probably right because it's showing in the district plans. There's an archaeological site there, so they're trying to do the before the application, saved holding up the application. But that's another process for Ngāti Tōpū that we have to really deal with.
Yeah.
And realistically, we only meet for 4 hours, if that, in a month.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a time commitment that's generating is causing the problem. Is that
yes.
what I'm hearing?
Yes. It's a time commitment, and how do you deal with that time commitment, and how do you deal with the compensation of the delegates' time?
Yeah. So and are they the people being referred through council officers to you? Is that how they're getting the contacts, do you think? Or
I think so. But some know because they've dealt with me before.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
If I can just add, and this also happens with resource consent applications. I've often, well, no, I'm not often, 2 times I can recall where I've had a message or an email, but contact with the developer. And in one instance, I hadn't received all the information from the correct avenue, i.e. through the councillor or through the person, through the person from council who's actually dealing with that. So you're sort of caught off guard a bit because the process isn't being followed. I have to respond to someone about a consent of which I have no knowledge.
Yeah.
It is healthy from the point of view that you actually see people face to face instead of on paper, and I find that always useful because that's an avenue that we respond to as well. But I feel caught out sometimes because I think it's happened twice, because I don't have the documentation. It's not come from the developer. There may be through the normal processes that we have with ngā iwi tōpū or waipa from council to ngā iwi, but no other documentation has been supplied. So it's really just a process thing. It doesn't mean it can't happen. We get round it, but I'm sort of just explaining that, for myself personally, a couple of times I've been caught off guard because the developer wants to jump the gun and get going.
Yeah. Okay. Kirsty, have you got any ideas on how, or Gary, how we can get some regularity into those inquiries? Is it a case of we're having to refer them back to council to come through the proper channels so that we can make sure all the information is there? I'm just not quite sure how to grip this up for them.
I think, Your Worship, there's a couple of things in there. One, Galen, I know you've been looking at putting a charge on that initial work. I'm not sure quite where you've got to there, but I think there'd be an acceptance that we shouldn't be out of pocket for doing this work. Secondly, I guess I guess there would be some advantages, I guess, in getting ahead of a consent application, if you can deal with that up front. But again, we shouldn't be disadvantaged. That's a service you're providing. So I think I probably encourage you to keep looking at those processes internally about how we charge for those. Once it becomes formalised, then we need to make sure that the correct information is getting through to you, and that you're again able to deal with that in a way that doesn't disadvantage you financially. So there's a lot, I guess, just to grip up within that around those processes, both internally for council and for Ngāiwi Tōpū itself.
Okay, Bill, I see you've got your hand up there.
Thanks, Jim. Just if I might just add to the kōrero that's going on at the moment is that what Ngāiwi Tōpū have been discussing more recently, and this ties to some extent to the Te Kawa thing, and could go as far as Wairoto or Naruto, is structures on our wahi tapu. So Te Kawa is significant, and there have been, by way of processes previously, that might not have been tika, structures erected. And if I can talk in terms of Wairoto, we've got the sailing club and the rowing and all of those groups there. In the case of the sailing club, that's actually been erected right on a pā site. So we just, as Galen was saying, we've become, it's a situation where we're engaging or looking to engage with the council over.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, sorry, Gary, you were going to.
I was just to say, there's another. I think the naming policy is another example where we've basically, through the policy, encouraged engagement with between developers and mana whenua as well. So that again is something that I guess is another responsibility, if you like, that we've put back to mana whenua. That does take, does take time and resource to respond back with names, etc. As well. But particularly in the Cambridge area, that's becoming more of an issue.
Yeah, well, it's where the biggest chunk of development's going on at the moment, isn't it? Okay, so moving on from this, Galen, is it a case of working with Gary to see how we, and Kirsty, how we can come up with a process that, I suppose, I'm not trying to filter out people getting to discuss the issues with you, but maybe it needs to be a referral. You only deal with people that have come through, if you like, I was going to say the proper channels, or through the council channels, so that we've got a record, I suppose, of the amount of applications that are coming your way, because a number of them may not advance past that initial discussion if they decide that there's issues that can't be resolved, then they'll go away. But you still put the time in dealing with them. Kirsty.
Through you, Your Worship, I'd suggest that we have an agreed action that Gary and I liaise with Tony Quickfall, who is on this meeting, and his team, and then connect with Galen about some suggested process improvements.
Yeah, thanks, Kirsty. Is that satisfactory, Galen?
Yep, that'll work for me.
Okay, thanks.
Just Jim acknowledge Councillor Pollard has arrived.
Oh, Graham Pollard.
Oh, yeah. That's the other one. I keep getting the two mixed up. I'm a shocker. I'll put it down to COVID deficiency.
Graham and Tony can introduce themselves if when they come on screen, if you like. No, Graham Webber is
Webber. That's right.
Yeah, that's all right. No, it's Graham. I don't think would want to be promoted to a councillor because the pay's not as good. Okay, Galen, did you have anything else?
I just wanted to see if any of the other members wanted to have a say, and then I'll finish it off with the Naruto report. No.
Bill, did you want to raise that treaty training issue at this point? Or?
I do.
Awesome.
Yeah, I do. Actually, Bill might want to talk to that.
Okay, cool. I did think it was on the agenda, so was waiting for that on the agenda. But if now's the appropriate time, Galen, I'm happy to raise it. Jim, I became aware of, as in my kānohi role on behalf of Iwi, aware of some treaty training, and I think Rob Gordon mentioned it in one of the hui that I was present at, and I was interested to know what was going on and where that had come from, and I raised it with Gary Knighton in terms of were the kānohi reps invited to that. Gary sent me information. Gary Knighton sent me information about it, and I was happy. That it appeared that training appeared to be heading in the right direction. And although an invite did go to me, I know that other kānohi reps didn't get an invite, and so it was part of a discussion at Iwi Tōpu on Monday, and I just wondered how the training actually went from the councillor's presence perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Look, I'm happy to make some comments, but Susan and Andrew, did you want to comment first? Susan.
Sorry, I've just come in from a phone call. Phone call. So Andrew might want to go first, and I'll follow up.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Bill and Jim. Yeah. I mean, it was. How can I put this? It's stuff that we never got taught in school and should have, clearly. And bit of an eye-opener in that things are still happening that are not really in line with the treaty. Yeah, it was a very worthwhile experience, I guess. Having said all that, being on council and exposed to these matters more, I guess, than the average citizen, it wasn't a surprise to me, but it was I thought it was well done, and it certainly gave me some deeper insights to the issues that we're facing as a nation going forward still, which are considerable. And I guess the last thing is that I'd like to say is that we have to acknowledge the past properly before we can really address the future and go forward together as a nation. Yeah. So it was good. Yeah.
Thanks, Andrew. Susan.
Yeah, look, I echo Andrew's sentiments. I'd actually been pushing for this, for training of this nature or some form of assistance for probably the better part of, would have been 18 months or so, I think, Kirsty. It had been about that length of time. And through for various reasons, it had been put off or delayed, or COVID obviously had a big role in that. My motivation, I suppose, in asking for and pushing for that training was that it became pretty clear quite early on to me that there was a very large range of people's understandings of, firstly, the history, specifically in our area, which during our induction, I have to acknowledge Shane was amazing at trying to upskill and bring up to speed some of our members who were lacking in that space. But on a broader context, it was obvious to me that there were quite significant vacuums in understanding around the broader issues of the colonisation of New Zealand and the history behind the treaty and what led to the treaty and what led after the treaty. And it was a really, as far as Groundworks, who were the outfit that presented to us, I thought it was a really, neutral's not quite the right word, but it was very conversational, very blunt, but quite a sort of safe kind of environment to try and understand, you know, when you've got people who are quite well versed at one end of the spectrum to those who really don't know, and dare I say it, don't possibly have too much interest of their own accord in the whole subject. So I thought it was a really valuable experience. And I guess from where I sit, and it's become clear to me that there are kind of two parallel kind of questions or issues in play here. One is local government's jurisprudential kind of situation, its legal obligations, you know, that bundle of obligations that we have there. Like, what does that look like? And I guess from an elected member's perspective, I don't really know. So I still want to have that clarified. So that's kind of one bundle over here. And then over here, we've got this moral collection of obligations potentially, and that's related specifically to Waipa and connected to what happened here and the people that we live alongside, you know, and amongst. So I guess those are kind of, for me, two things that are still in play, and I'd like to hope that going forward we can not so much resolve those, because I don't think you can ever resolve those sorts of things, but get a greater clarity on where we sit as an elected membership and what that looks like in practice for Waipa. So that was kind of, that course was the kind of the beginning of that process in my mind. And I think it was really valuable. I was a wee bit disappointed that not everybody could make it. We had a few people who were quite sick, so couldn't. But I thought it was a really valuable experience. And I kind of, I've kept the links and hope it's still live so I can try and pull the occasional person I know and say, come look at this, look at this. And, you know, some really cool interactive maps showing the loss of land in short time frames and things like that. That's a really graphic way of trying to understand what happened. So, yeah, well worth doing. Hope that kind of explains or addresses your questions, Bill, because I apologise, I had to take an urgent phone call. But that to me is the origin, or the reason why we had that training. And as I say, I think for me it starts with there's a base learning, and we're going to have to build on that and look at what this looks like in Waipa for us going forward.
Yeah, thanks, Susan. Look, I concur with both Andrew and Susan there. It was from my perspective, a good historical context, I suppose, in terms of the training. And I suppose the issues really that I see that are pretty outstanding issues, not only for Waipa, but probably for the country as a whole, is the issues about, and probably definitions, if you like, about co-governance and partnership arrangements, and just actually what does that mean. And I suppose I'm frustrated by the Crown in setting new legislation and calling for consultation, co-governance, partnerships, whatever you want, in the different legislations that are imposed on local government without any real clear definition of what that means, how is going to be funded, because the resources for both council and iwi are, I was going to say non-existent, but they're dependent on ratepayer base rather than a taxpayer base. So I suppose the legislation that comes out, the RMA earlier on, and the requirement to consult. Then we get the Three Waters reform that we'll touch on a bit later. Probably the biggest shift in functions for local government, and we were cut off at the knees about consulting with anyone, let alone iwi, on that regard, told that we didn't know what the proposal was, therefore we couldn't consult. And then it becomes mandatory, and then we're set up with a structure that I think is going to cause a whole lot more confusion. So some clarity would be really helpful, and whether it's something that we could actively work on together to get back to government and say, look, you guys, it's no good having 67 local authorities around the country all trying to work out what the partnership arrangements are supposed to be, what the co-governance arrangements are supposed to be. Let's have some clarity and talk about it as a national issue, rather than, as I say, a whole heap of councils putting their own flavour on it, which may or may not be correct. So I think it's definitely it was a good starting point, but as with the others, I think that it's just that, a starting point, and we need to move forward on it. Yeah. Bill, so I don't know whether that helps.
See, Galen's got a hand up, Jim. So.
Oh, sorry, Galen, I didn't see you in the top corner.
No worries at all. No worries. So I'd like to congratulate the councillors that attended the Waitangi workshop. But one of the difficulties for mana whenua is if the kānohi reps don't attend those, then we'll have no idea what you understand of Waitangi, the treaty, and what we understand of it. And there will always be a clash. It depends on the person who is delivering it, what you're going to get. Many people deliver that workshop different ways. Waikato Tainui will deliver the treaty a different way, and so will Maniapoto. They're similar. So if we're not understanding what you're trying to understand, then we're always going to be at loggerheads. Hey, so so that's the only concern that I had, is that the kānohi reps weren't invited to that, which it is a good partnership that everybody listens to whatever has been said, and then we all get to understand it together.
Yeah, Galen, we can put that right next time, and with any, well, not with any luck, we'll have a new ward councillor, Maori ward councillor at that time as well. So that's a great move forward. Yeah, look, there was no reason that the Te Kanohi representative shouldn't have been there. It was certainly nothing secret. I think it was a logistical issue more than anything else. Gary or Kirsty might know whether we were set with numbers for that particular training, but look, I'll make a commitment that in future we'll involve those representatives in any further training. So yeah, so kia ora, Galen. Shane and then Andrew.
Yeah, just to support that notion from an Iwi relations advisor position and for our relationships across the board, it would be to our advantage to have Te Kanohi involved in treaty training alongside the councillors, and just seeking as part of the ongoing relationships notions, how often are the training sessions going to be, annually, twice a year, so on and so forth. Any notions about how often training will be provided for councillors and Te Kanohi reps. It speaks well to our relationship building activities.
Sure, Shane. Kirsty, did you just want to answer that before whether there's anything further planned? Obviously, I was going to say I didn't see it being sort of a regular, sort of monthly training, but there's obviously elections coming up in October, and we'd probably need to be planning to do a fair bit of training at that point along the journey. But Kirsty, have you got any comment?
For you, Your Worship, if I can just backtrack in terms of the involvement of Te Kanohi in this first round of training, there was, I don't think there, as you said, there was any specific exclusion, but rather there were two parts to the training. So there was a limit on numbers, but also there was quite a heavy component in terms of preparation that was required to be undertaken over quite a short period of time, followed by an interactive session online. And look, ideally that would be in person, and we're keen to get back to in-person meetings. I think these conversations, training and conversations, are best done face-to-face. In terms of what comes next, this whole conversation about training around tikanga and te tiriti, it needs to be further discussed with the internal staff team and strategic partnerships and the executive team. This is one of our core organisational values, so how we give effect to that, but also then with elected members. And my understanding is Councillor O'Regan has raised the issue of treaty jurisprudence and for us to get a better understanding of that. So we need to look at what we can do to secure some definitive advice and get clarity on that. The elected members, I expect, will want to have a conversation about their learnings and what that might look like for them as a collective. And, I would expect that following that, there would then be some face-to-face conversations with Te Kanohi and perhaps wider. So look, we will come back in terms of the future training program. Your Worship, you raised about we're going to have a Māori ward councillor. We may well have, a different makeup of our council. We had quite a different induction program at the commencement of this triennium, and we're keen to grow that with quite an emphasis on that, on working with mana whenua and iwi as partners, better understanding our district and the significance, the cultural significance of this place that we are blessed to live in and to give service to. So we will come back, but certainly this has been a helpful feedback session. We will take on board your comments and come back.
Thanks, Kirsty. Andrew, I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Look, I just wanted to say I completely agree with Galen's comments. Also, I would be absolutely in favour of this training being ongoing and you know, if at all possible, compulsory. It's pretty uncomfortable for a lot of people. A lot of people don't want to face the past and what happened. But until we do, and particularly people in our position who, you know, I guess have some influence in the community, we're going to struggle to go forward, you know, in a positive way. Kia ora.
Thanks, Andrew. Susan, sorry.
If that's okay. I'll just follow on from what Andrew said. Yeah, look, it's going to be uncomfortable. We have to accept that. But I think from uncomfortable conversations, great futures can be born or emerge. You know, there can be better understanding. I guess, like, I'll be honest, I think the thing that underpins all this is that people think that acknowledgement of rights of others is somehow a loss of rights for them. That's essentially, that underpins, I think, the whole thing. And until we can unpack that and be clear about what that future will look like, we'll constantly just go nowhere. So I think it's a really good start to an exciting a journey for us all. But it wasn't by any means intended to be a comprehensive one-hit wonder to suddenly make us all experts on the treaty. And but it was a beginning of a journey, I suppose, to fill in some of those basic voids in people and elected members' knowledge in that area. And as I say, it's a pity it couldn't have been done a lot earlier. But yeah, I look forward to seeing where this takes us, because I think it's crucial.
Thanks, Susan. Shane, did you not take your hand down, or you've got something?
Just a little bit more, Ted, and it's just in respect of the comments now from our councillors, that in respect of the historical overview, which has given such a broaden and deepen the appreciation for the impacts of the treaty. And it does point to, though, that the need for more, because we're also talking about the present day impacts and future impacts of treaty breaches, and the whole need for conversations to continue in and around engagement and participation to move us to a better place. So yeah, just encouraging of the furthering of exploring in the area of training for treaty training for everyone.
Yeah, sure, Shane. Yeah, look, historical one aspect, isn't it? But we've also got a plan to be moving forward as well. So, Bill, you had your hand up as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the council members and you, Jim, for the openness and the sharing of the session, and yeah, certainly Andrew acknowledging you know, the feeling, the wairo that you've expressed, and Susan for in part the lead to the council in this regard. I just wanted to, one thing I wanted to say is it's not always comfortable for us as kanohi being in those council chambers as well, or online. So I you know, that was the word, one of the words that I clicked onto, Susan, when you were speaking about, you know, it's uncomfortable, and but it's not, you know, I just wanted to say that it's, as a kanohi rep, it's not always comfortable for us in the chamber either. And there are times when, you know, when we possibly would want to say something but don't say something, because we know that it's you know, it's possibly not going to be shared or heard, or actually picked up on in the right way if we do share it. So yeah, sorry, Jim, I just felt that, there's some feeling to this, and I just wanted to express that while all of the rest of the iwi are present with us online, and acknowledge them. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, kia ora, Bill. I think that's an issue that cuts both ways, and I think the only way we can get around that is meeting face to face and sharing our concerns as honestly as we can. And we're not always going to agree for sure, but I'd hate to think people were finding it difficult to actually speak their mind at council, and if that's the case, we've probably got to be looking at how we can work around that situation so everybody is comfortable, as I say, speaking their mind and asking the appropriate questions and challenging council, because yeah, as much as I go along with Andrew trying to make it compulsory, we can't make anything compulsory with elected members, but I think the peer pressure is really important. You know, if there's a vast majority of the councils are doing it, it will drag those people along that are probably more reticent than others. Gayleen.
No, I just wanted to finish my Naruto report before you went off and did something else.
Yeah, well,
because I understand the agenda's gone way past what it's supposed to.
Yeah, this committee's renowned for that, Gayleen.
I know. I know. But if I could also talk about, we engaged Miriata Taurua to do a report with Naruto and where we've been and where we're going to. But it did raise some things in there that I'd actually forgotten, and Jim might remember them too. But the partnership that Iwi has is the ICC is the partner, and the Ngāuru Tōpu is the administration of ICC. It's not the partner. So we were engaged to, because there was not enough meetings in the ICC, Ngāuru Tōpu was established to do that, and that's where the consent notices came. But what we are trying to do is we timetable the staff into our meetings so we're able to meet whatever the council is doing at that time. So we meet during the our Ngāuru Tōpu timeframes. But in doing that, there's a whole lot of other things you can't do. And sometimes it's the administration of Ngāuru Tōpu that gets missed because of the number of things that staff are doing within council that they bring to Ngāuru Tōpu, like the environment strategy, the spatial planning, naming policies. They all take time. So we're actually trying to, we're doing it ourselves. We're going back to what we originally was there for, and that's administration of the ICC. But in doing that, it's really difficult to do that now, because there's so much stuff that goes through the ICC, but it's not asking for input from iwi. They're just reports that are being delivered at the ICC. So actually, the only thing that we should deal with at Ngāuru Tōpu is the resource consent applications, because if the agenda continues to go where the council is delivering all of its stuff on it, then there's no plan, there's no space for iwi, and the ICC is for iwi. It's for talking about iwi aspirations and where iwi is going, rather than what the council is doing. So I'm not sure whether you understand what I'm getting at.
Absolutely, Gayleen.
If we can just kind of get that on some kind of understanding, so we go forward together rather than not. You know, we're not the community deliverers. You can't come to ICC and deliver the community stuff to us, because Jim would have noticed that you can just about have a meeting of silence and you only have to listen to me. But because there's no impact to Māori on those agenda items. And so I just want to look at trying to make an agenda item in ICC that is more a partnership role between iwi and the council at that level, because that's where the partnership is.
Thanks, Gayleen. Has Miriata's report, I haven't seen it as yet, it may not be completed, but has that report picked up on these concerns?
Yes, because that's where I got reminded of a number of things that she had dug out. And she's got she did her first draft just on Monday the 4th. And so she says, we're going to feed back to it and then we're going to go from there.
Okay. Hey, well, listen, they're all really valid points, and everybody is stretched at the moment. I know how you're feeling. We're feeling it because we're getting stuff from central government the whole time with the changes that are going on and short turnaround times. And I think the whole community is stressed with what changes are happening. So let's get that report and see how we can work together to tidy it up so that you are discussing the relevant issues and we're not just bogging you down with housekeeping stuff.
Because one thing that you have in the ICC is that there is a position for Iwi Rep to be at the committee, and it's very unique to have mana whenua and Iwi representation at one committee. And so what we have to remember is that there are two different discussions. There's those that are on the ground, and then there's the legislative, which gives the mana to the Iwi representatives. And so that's why we need to look carefully about how what the agenda looks like.
Yeah, thanks, Galen.
So,
no worries.
Yuisha, I think just through you, just Galen, I think you were intending to bring that to the next meeting. Is that still
yes.
the June meeting anyway? So that report should be
yes.
Thanks, Galen. Did you have anything else for your report?
No, you've heard enough from me. Thank you.
Never heard too much. So you'll move your verbal report?
I will.
Thanks, Galen. Can I have a seconder for that? Bill, all those in favour?
Aye.
Contrary, carried. Hey, thank you for that. Item 7 is the water services update.
Yes, kia ora. Thank you. All right. Yes, hello again, everyone. So I'm happy through you, the worship, to have my report taken as read, but I can highlight some key points from it. So essentially, I've gotten the report that Taumata Aroa, which is our new water regulator, they became operational from November last year. And recently they have released a series of drinking water compliance rules for consultation, and that closed end of February, start of March. So council have submitted on those. We're in agreement that the drinking water standards should be replaced, but not in their entirety. There's some technical details that we have submitted on. And similarly, the Ministry for the Environment have released a draft national environmental standard for sources of human drinking water. We also submitted on that, and I included a copy of Council's submission for your reference as well. So again, we supported it, but not in its entirety. There's some technical points there that we sort of have highlighted to them. The other thing that's happening at a big national level, of course, is the 3 water reforms. Now, Mayor Jim, I'm happy to put this over to you as well, but in the report, I've put a bit of an update on where the timelines are at, just as an FYI, really. So unsure, Jim, if you wanted to speak to any of that now or at the end of my report. Over to you.
I'll pick up on it towards the end, Renee, unless there's questions now.
Fabulous. All right, so the other section in my report is around our project updates. And so 2 key ones there are the Kihikihi alternative water supply. So that work is about to recommence, and that was following further corridor around the site significance. And there's some more detail provided in the report around that. And the other one is the Cambridge wastewater treatment plant and that project. So that's a long-term project that's been happening for quite some time and will continue. So we're looking on the reconsenting of that for a longer-term solution, as well as a new wastewater treatment plant. And so we've been working really closely with our kaitiaki members on the development of a Mataranga Māori framework and the execution of that, and also having some really awesome corridor around site restoration and potential opportunities for native nurseries and that sort of thing on parts of the site that aren't going to be needed in the future. So those are sort of some key highlights here. There's a lot more detail in the report as well, but happy to take it as read and welcome any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Renee. Just following on from that, and we can take questions on both Renee's and my quick update on what's happening. So Renee's certainly covered off what the I suppose the Department of Internal Affairs has set in terms of a timeline for introducing the new 4 water entities across the country. As you'll be aware, Waipa is a partner in the 31, I think now, it was 32, but Dunedin's been in and out of the what's referred now to Communities for Local Democracy, which is nearly half of the councils across the country. It's about 1.5 million of the population tied up in those council areas. And Auckland, if you take Auckland into account, it's well over 2.5, 3 million of our population are, I suppose, uncomfortable with the 4 water entity model. And that is nothing to do with the co-governance arrangements, because the Communities for Local Democracy, and I attended a meeting just on Monday this week, and I will forward the information there where we made a presentation to Nanaya and the Green Party in terms of an alternative option moving forward. And I suppose the real concern for the councils around the country is that loss of control and being able to, water and sewerage and stormwater are such a key component of local communities and planning for their growth. And the concern is that these massive water entities are going to be just about uncontrollable from a local community perspective. And if you take the entity B, which is the one that that Waipa would be involved in, it's the whole of the Waikato, Taranaki catchment. There's something like 22 councils involved in that. And as I understand it, about 78 hapu. And how are they going to get that, I suppose, that local involvement with that scale of governance structure, I suppose, in terms of trying to plan for the future of the water infrastructure? So the main thrust, and there's an alternative proposal that's been put forward to central government that still fully supports the need to obviously enforce the better drinking water and environmental standards. There's just absolutely no argument about the water regulator. We need to have effective partnerships with mana whenua in co-designing the governance structure, and something that mana whenua are comfortable with, rather than being involved in, as I say, something like 78 hapu in that region. So it's looking to alternative arrangements. We acknowledge that around the country there are some councils that are really struggling to meet the standards. And the suggestion being put forward is that, well, in the past, central government provided subsidies, and for Kihi, for example, is the most recent one around here. 50% of the cost of installing the sewage system for Kiki was funded by a grant from central government. The other 50% came from connected consumers, really. Te Awamutu and Cambridge funded the other 50%, and then we pick up all the operating costs. Central government has said that they don't see that they will be continuing to fund anything towards the Three Waters infrastructure. It's all going to have to be through charges. And so the suggestion being made is that for those communities that, because of their scale, can't afford to actually put the infrastructure in place, then there would be a levy, a suggested levy on all existing consumers across the country. It would go into a fund that could be then allocated on a national basis on an absolute needs basis. And just thinking locally, not for any other reason and not picking on Kawhia for argument's sake, but water and sewerage there is a real challenge for the Otahonga district. There should be some support from the country as a whole to actually get those systems up in place so that we're not having septic tank effluent running out into the harbour and substandard water supplies. So we're looking at actually focusing the financial resources where they're actually needed, rather than just across the country as a one size fits all. Excuse me. So look, I'm still fully supportive of the aims, obviously, of clean water and the improved environmental standards, but I think there's a better way of doing it, and so do nearly half of the councils around the country. So that's where we're coming from. And as I say, I'm more than happy to send out the information I got on Monday. And it's, excuse me, coughing, COVID. And it has a statement on iwi partnerships, and just really wants to reiterate that there is nothing in the proposals that we're putting forward that is designed to cut out mana whenua having an input into whatever structure is finally established. So that's a quick potted summary, but as I say, I'm happy to circulate that and the presentation that we gave to Nanaya with the 10-point plan on how we could move forward. Galen, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Jim. I'd look forward to reading that document. So the second thing is that I'll have a conversation with Norman and Julian. They did the presentation on the stormwater to Iwi Tōpu, but actually they should have included Mātauranga Māori frameworks in their delivery, rather than just talking about it as a stormwater discharge consultation, especially when you're talking to a mana whenua group. I just reading this report, I felt that a lot of the information that should have been given wasn't given, because then Iwi Tōpu would have picked it up ages ago and would have been able to be more informed about what is happening around that space. Mātauranga Māori frameworks is quite a discussion out there now, and what does that look like? I've probably been involved in a couple of them now, about because if you look at Te Whai Mana, what does that mean? What does that mean on a Mātauranga Māori basis? And I can guarantee you very few people will be able to give you a Mātauranga Māori view on Te Ture Whai Mana. Rather, they can give you what it is from a legislative view. Two, because this is a project that I believe that mana whenua can work with council with, because one, it impacts us hugely.
Yep.
Anything to do with water impacts on us hugely. From a Māori view, it's just very different. But how we do that together is will take a little bit of thought, so that we can understand what our views are going forward, but not to be tarnished by what is already out there. My view is to have a view of the mana whenua that's on the ground where we come from now, rather than the peripherals matter, but not always do they matter. because we have to talk about what is important to us on the ground, because we're the ones that look at it every day. And a lot of other people look at it from another view, from a governance view, which is very different to how we look at it. There are people next to rivers that can tell you what kind of plant grows there and what was there before, but you couldn't get that always from a wider view. So what am I trying to get at? There are a lot of stuff in here. Like you have Kaitiaki members, what is that? You have a Mātauranga Māori framework, what is that? All of those have a concern to mana whenua, because what is that? Nobody's discussed that with mana whenua. And, you know, and I could be barking up the wrong tree, but I can see it written on the paper, but I have no idea what that means. Which is pretty sad for a mana whenua group not to understand any of that.
Yeah. Galen, can I just ask, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but as a general preference, would you see working with not just necessarily Waipa on its own, but maybe a catchment-based entity rather than one of the 4 water entities that are across the country with the scale? Is it easier to get the influences you're talking about in a more regional structure than a massive, it's almost, well, it's in 4, but it's almost a national structure? They'll be the 4, just about the 4 biggest companies in New Zealand by the, well, not that they're going to have a company structure, but in terms of business, they'll be one of the, they'll be about the 4 biggest businesses in the country. So how do we, it's what I'm struggling with, looking after the community. How are we going to have influence over what they do? And I just see it's just too big. But yeah, so the question really is, where's the preference? Is it the 4 water entity model, or is it something smaller?
In my opinion, and it can only be in my opinion, you can only look after what's on your doorstep. Now, Rewi Manipoto said that at Ōrākau. He worried about what was there, not what was happening on the peripherals of him. And we have many tupuna within the Waipa area who showed us that. They fought for what they believed in. And Waipa needs to fight for what it believes in. And that's my opinion. You know, you can only talk about what you know on your back door. You can't talk about what everybody else knows. Somebody else's mātauranga outside the door, well, that's their mātauranga, kei koutou. You know, that's what they believe in. But if once you believe in what you believe in here, like Naruto has believed in themselves for over 30 years now, and we've fought for it. And so I believe that. Worry about what's on your own doorstep. Sure, you have to think about what's on the peripherals, but are they going to matter to us? No.
Yeah, thanks, Galen. As I see, Bill, you've got your hand up. There's a statement in, I suppose what the communities for local government are asking for is for the government to actually pause and stop rushing this change through, which is going to have long or far-reaching effects across the country for many generations to come. And once you scramble the egg, it's pretty hard to back up. So we don't really want to get it wrong. But the statement that's been made in the compromise proposal, it's only fairly short and I'll just read it, but it's item 3, which says, with respect to investment decision making, asset owners should actively seek to initiate authentic discussions with mana whenua at a local level that considers co-design and partnership arrangements that acknowledge and enable te-tiriti-based pathways at a local and regional level. So that's what we're asking for, is for some time to develop those discussions. So look, as I say, I'm not sure whether we're going to have any success or not. Government seems hell-bent, I suppose, on pushing this thing forward. And I understand why, because they've got an absolute majority at the moment. And if they want to get changes through, this is their time to do it. But it shouldn't be at the expense of the country as a whole. Bill,
yeah, that's right,
sorry,
Jim.
David.
But if you so what is the biggest thing that's in the news now? It is about Ukraine, and so they are fighting for the rights of their people, and they have to fight the world, but they're still fighting for the rights of their people.
Yeah. Thanks, Galen. Bill.
Totally taitoko what Galen has said. One of the things that I looked at in terms of when I was reading the documents was, in terms of Māori, should it be based on waka line? Because I think that the present government proposal cuts across, what would be the waka lines, and so, from a partnership perspective, Waikato Tainui is in one part and will cross 2 lines. I think it is 2 of the 4, and I suspect that that's true of others as well. I'm not saying that the waka should be the only determining factor in here, but having some of these lines, these 4 lines split across the waka is, I don't think, in the best interests of Matauranga Māori.
Yes. So how we progress this, as I say, we've put up an when I say collectively, the councils that are concerned about it have put up the alternatives. If there's any, we'll wait and see what the response is back, and hopefully there's some changes afoot. I'm not hopeful. But I can see that it's not in the best interests of Waipa, the 4 water entity model that's being proposed for a number of reasons. So, we can, or I can only do what I consider, and the council considers best for Waipa. And that does have some national connotations as well. We all travel around the country. We all want to know that when we go to Wellington, we're going to get safe drinking water, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the structures have to be as they put forward in their model.
Sorry, just one last point, if it's okay, Jim. Sure. I wondered whether the council had looked at the Maniapoto Trust Board's proposals in this space, or even the Waikato Tainui ones. Are the council's proposals in line with those?
Bill, I haven't seen those proposals. I'd be really interested in having a look at them. And they, I would imagine, would be quite logical geographical areas anyway. So certainly interested in looking at that. And if the opportunity is given to councils across the country to have those discussions, then they would be a great starting point to look at how we can handle the issues for our catchments, if you want to call it that, whether that be a river catchment or based on iwi mana whenua status around the district. Okay.
I was sort of leaving a space there because I wondered whether Gabe wanted to say anything.
Gabe.
I'm just very interested. I'm just very interested on what's being said. I wasn't prepared to talk on the 3 waters anyway, but it'd be good to get information back from the Trust Board so that everyone is informed.
Yeah, Gabriel, I'll as I say, I'll get this. I only got it on Monday, so I'll get it into the office and we can get it circulated to everybody.
Thank you.
Right, thanks, Bill. Okay, just looking at the time, it's 11:30. Did we want to go to the spatial plan? the Gary? Is that the why did the spatial plan have to be up at 11:45?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I think, Kirsty, as everyone, do you have all your, I don't think Vanessa's online at the moment, is she? Or?
No, so through you, Your Worship,
Okay.
we are
Perhaps
expecting Vanessa
yeah.
and Tiffany Wilson to join us for that item.
Okay,
perhaps if we took one more.
Yeah, we'll just keep going until I see them come up on the screen, eh? Yeah. All right. Item 8, review of dog control policy.
Sorry, Madam, we need to pass the resolution for the water services update.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry about that. The recommendation is there to receive the report. So can a mover and seconder move Councillor Brown, Andrew and Susan? All those in favour? Aye. Contrary? Carried. Thanks, Claire. Dog control policy bylaw. Who's handling that? Graham.
Yes, thank you. Your Worship, good morning, everybody. This is a short and straightforward report on proposals to amend and update the dog control policy and dog control bylaw. Hopefully we can take the report as read, subject to some feedback from the Strategic Planning and Policy Committee yesterday, which is relevant to the third paragraph on the second page of the report. And that's page 45 of your agenda. Obviously, some concerns were raised by the committee yesterday regarding community engagement and some of the proposals. As a result of that, we think that we can still bring forward a report to Strategic Planning and Policy Committee on the 3rd of May, seeking to officially start a review of the policy and the bylaw. But because of the concerns of councillors yesterday, we actually want to have a longer period of engagement with the community before we actually formalise what those changes are going to look like. So rather than consultation in mid-May, we're suggesting probably a period of consultation with the wider community and with Iwi. And then on that feedback, we can develop firmer proposals for the committee to consider. On that timetable, the 28th of September adoption is looking more doubtful, but we can go into that in greater depth as we learn more from the community as to what needs to be done. So Carl Tutty is here as well. He's the technical expert on this, but I just wanted to bring that potential timetabling change to your attention.
Okay, thanks, Graham. Okay, so look, this dog policy has been brought forward, probably not quickly enough. It's sort of out, it's earlier than the 10-year requirement for the review. It's mainly come about because of the concerns of dogs on Kakipuku, and we want to take the opportunity while we're looking at that change to update the whole bylaw. So, and the concern from council yesterday at the SPMP meeting was to make sure that the community had enough time to identify the areas where they want to see some changes rather than us dictate where the changes should happen. So that's really the background of it. Dominic, I see you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Jim. Just wanted to say from the Kakipuku perspective, I'm very supportive of this change. I've just read it earlier, and I'll report this back to the Marae Tukopa, you see it in the background here, because we are part of the group that is petitioning for the dog restrictions on Kakipuku. I support the approach of the staff here to parked that, waiting on Department of Conservation for them to come back, and in this way we're happy to see that some progress has been made. I did think the timing here was quite ambitious, so I hear what you're saying, Graham, and I think that having that consultation period longer. I'd like to be able to report this back to the Marae Committee, to the Hapu, later this month, but our initial view of this is very supportive. So thank you to Graham and your team.
Thanks, Dominic. So yeah, I think it's important to have a look at the other areas around the district as well, just to make sure that we're getting it right. And yeah, as I say, these policies only get reviewed every 10 years. I don't know if Carl wanted to make any comment. So yeah, once we've done it, it's expensive project and process, time consuming and all the rest of it. So yeah, we should be able to get it right, I hope. Is there any other comments? All right, thank you for that. So can I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation to receive the report? And move Dominic, and seconded Gayleen. All those in favour?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried. Item 9, the district work program. For the, who's handling this, Kirsty? Oh, sorry, Joe. And Tony's with us as well.
Kia ora all. This is our update on our district plan work program, and it involves discussions about the plan changes we're undertaking, as well as national directions that we are involved with. So for those people new to the committee, Waipa is working on putting its district plan online as an electronic version of the district plan. It means that people will be able to go to a web page and be able to access the latest and most up-to-date version of the district plan. We're still ongoing with this. We're currently trying to work out how to migrate our GIS maps into the computer system that our e-plan provider is giving us. That's an ongoing work in progress at the moment. Since our last meeting, the government has enacted the Resource Management Enabling Housing and Other Matters Amendment Bill. In a nutshell, essentially, the bill requires us to insert medium density residential standards into the residential zones within the urban area boundaries of Cambridge, Te Awamutu and Kihikihi. These standards will allow people as a right to build 3 times 3-story housing on sections that comply and meet the standards. We are currently working on identifying what is called qualifying matters to see what residential areas we can exempt from the new medium density residential standards, and we are looking at things like the flood hazard areas, designations, protected trees, character areas, and one matter we are looking at is Te Turu Whaamana, and seeing if we can use the vision and strategy as the overarching document, resource management document for the Waikato, to push back a little from the new intensification standards, as the more housing you put into a section, the more storm runoff you get and the potential for not bettering the health and well-being of the Waikato and Waipa rivers. The only other update there is on the plan change table, we are looking at getting a private consultant in to progress plan change 23, which is the Papakainga plan change. It went on hold last year as one of the policy advisors who were dealing with it left Waipa. At the SPMP committee meeting yesterday, an undertaking was given by Wayne Allen, our group manager, to see if we could find funding to get an external consultant in to progress that plan change, which is a very important plan change that has just been just been on hold for far too long.
Okay. Bill.
Sorry to be so quick off the jump
No,
here,
it's all right.
Jim. But so do you have an idea of the time framing for when the when you might get a response from your manager as to as to progressing the papakainga?
I can probably cover that one off. So it's going to executive tomorrow, and the considerations, because it's so what's happened here is we got this plan change 26, which Joe's talked about, which is the intensification of the residential zones. So that's one that was unannounced. It took all the councils by surprise. You have to do it. And what we're having to do is focus all our resources onto that, because we've got a mandatory notification deadline of 20th of August. Big piece of work. And so that's focused all our resources in there, and it's meant we've had to come off some of the other plan changes. That's the background. It's going to executive tomorrow. The intention is, and we've done some ballpark cost estimates, the intention is if we can get some funding approved, probably from council's reserves it has to come out of, then we'll look at getting a consultant on, as Joe said. So in terms of timing, probably if we got the funding approved, we're probably looking at 6 weeks before we can get a consultant realistically engaged, on board and briefed. We've got a very short window of opportunity, I suppose, to get a plan change prepared and up to our council before the elections break. So it's really tight. Realistically, what we're thinking is that we may end up having to push it out to maybe February 2023, just because of the election cycle, which takes our elected members out for 2 to 3 months potentially. So we're working really hard. We'll work to try and get it up before they break if we possibly can. If not, then it's likely to be pushed into next year.
Just Jim, if you don't mind, supplementary to that, is it will we, in terms of the appointment of such a role, which is significant for us, will we get an opportunity to participate in that?
Yeah, so in terms of the appointment of the consultant, we'd like feedback from whatever is the best forum to get that feedback from our iwi in the district. And there'll be one of the reasons that we didn't want to push it through as part of the mandatory plan changes, as Joe said, is we need to make sure we've got a proper, robust process for engaging with iwi. And if we had put it into plan change 26, it would have been a very truncated, very rushed process.
Okay, just so quickly, Bill, council yesterday, yes, it was yesterday, we're not comfortable with at the policy, strategic policy committee, we're not comfortable where it was sitting, and made that commitment to get some additional funding in place. So once we get the details of that, I don't think it is going to be a problem at all. The majority of the councillors were there, and there was no dissenting voices. So look, it's a job that's personally an embarrassment to me that it's taken this long, and housing is such a critical issue, and this is only a part of the solution, but it's a significant part that we need to be focusing on. So and that's the opinion of the council. So yeah, look, we'll move ahead with pace now. We've just got to get it done. Yeah, thanks. Gayleen. And then Harold, sorry.
Oh my God, I can hear the old people saying, oh, better late than never.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to ask Joe something actually, and that's around the cultural sites of significance on the mapping online. Are they online?
It is a work in progress. Not all of our iwi within the district have all of their sites mapped and ready to go online. I'm hoping when I get a new person to join me in the policy team, so there's 2 of us, that might be something they can look at and start progressing. So it's definitely front of my mind. It's just at the moment, I can't take it any further, and I do need to do a road trip and catch up with each iwi authority to see how they're going with the mapping of their cultural sites and what stages they're at.
So this is another tap on the shoulder from the past too. Many years ago, Ngāi Tōpu completed a wāhi tapu register and provided that to the council, but on the proviso that it become a hidden document. And,
okay.
Yes, and so, oh gosh, I can't remember when that was done. Rukumana Palshausen actually did that report. But yeah, so the council does have one. And I'm just making sure that those sites are not put up online, because some of them, the majority of them are sitting on marae, those sites of significance. So yes, just thought I'd just, actually I just got a clap in the back of my head and I thought, oh, I better say that. Somebody's remembering it.
Thanks, you, Galen.
Thanks for that, Galen. Harold. You're on mute, Harold.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Totally agree with Galen around the silent files for the wāhi tapu that we prepared for Waipa. And I think you'll find that those same conditions apply to those that the iwi authorities hold on our behalf as well. I know that all the ones we did for this area, we actually treated with that confidentiality. So that doesn't mean to say they can't be put on there, but you need to get permission from the donors of that information before you could put it on. I'll just give you that advice so that you're aware of their conditions around making public that information. But what I wanted to talk about, Jim, was about the Papakainga. You know, we started this journey in 2018. We've got to wait till 2023 before we're finally able to do something. Now, I don't think council appreciates or is even aware that you're holding up something like 12 to 15 houses in projects that we have developed over the last 3 years. And now we have to wait again. The process and the proposal itself for Papakainga is quite simple, but you haven't even bothered to come and talk to us to show you how simple it can be. Because the problem that has been shown and all the examples that councils have put up are based on a context that's got nothing to do with the land that is going to be built on. And a simple fix, for example, for Waipa would be to say that Papakainga on Māori-owned land is a permitted activity. That can happen tomorrow. And I need council, we need council to start thinking in our space for its purpose. Papakainga is not about the laws of the country and the applications of council's proper purpose for land. It is about the better benefit of our land, Māori land, for Māori people. At the moment, that land is only fattening cows, for goodness sake. And we have looked at using it for a better purpose, especially in this housing shortage environment, to do a better purpose, to do a better benefit for our people. Now, I'm really disappointed at the fact that we might have to wait till 2023 before I can actually get these houses built. I'm now at the stage, in the design stage, for example, for the first or the group of houses. And the difficulty with these, that they don't have a, what would you call it, a marae association proximity under the current Papakainga, what would you call it, district plan. They have to be within a marae zone. Well, if the zone is only a couple hundred meters, you won't be getting any papa kāinga. But if we extended that zone to say a radius of 10 kilometres around those marae, you will have papa kāinga being able to be built for a better purpose for your community of ratepayers. So you need to sit down with us and talk about how we need to make this thing work for us. Because papa kāinga is not a means to get on the property market. It is only a means to get affordable housing for our mokopuna and our successors behind us after we've gone with the land that we own now. So I just wanted to put that down, Jim, so that we're clearly aware that we're getting tired of waiting.
Yeah, absolutely.
People in worse and worse situation and worse stress every time we have this thing deferred. And now this is the 4th time it has been deferred. There's always something more important than papa kāinga. We can fix it for you. We can tell you how to do it, but you haven't even bothered to listen to what we say.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, thanks, Harold. And I've got to take that criticism on the chin, and I fully concur with your comments. Harold, if you've got a proposition, it would pay you to talk with Tony to see if there's on a case-by-case basis whether there's a quicker avenue to get your housing ideas underway in the same way that Pohara have done, and maybe we can get that going in tandem with the changes that we're talking about to the district plan, which are horrendous really in terms of time and costs in doing it. So maybe there's not necessarily a shortcut provision, but something that we can do with your proposition if you've got to the stages of having designs already done and committed. There may be an option to do a specific resource consent application. Tony, have you got some comments on that?
Yeah, thank you. I was going to offer exactly the same thing. So we are constrained, unfortunately, by the Resource Management Act for plan changes, and there's no way around it really. It's a long and expensive process once we get a plan change on our books to take it through. But I was going to offer the same thing, is that if there's something you wanted to move faster, while it might not be permitted in the district plan, I'm sure that we'd be able to have a conversation around whether we can assist through a consent process to get something happening if that's where you're ready. I'm happy to coordinate that, Jim, and I'm sure Wayne will be supportive of that as well.
Okay, Harold. So can you get in touch with Tony at ASAP from your perspective when you're ready to go, and we can see what we can do, eh? Thanks, okay. Harold.
Thanks.
Can we make that a because there are a number of whānau looking at the possibilities of papa kāinga. So how do you open that up?
Well, Galen, it would have to be, at the moment, until we get this change through, it'll have to be on a case-by-case basis. So if you're not at the stage Harold is with designs and everything already ready to go, it's probably not going to be any quicker for you to get the application in. But if you are in the same position and you've got some specifics, then the offer is the same to you, eh?
No, I don't mind waiting another year. What's another year?
Oh, more grey hairs, Galen. Anyway, thank you for that. So moving forward on that, if there's no other comments or questions, I'll ask for a mover and seconder for the report from Joe. Mover, Bill, and seconded, where's Andrew. All those in favour? Aye. Contrary? Carried. Thank you for that. Now, I see that Vanessa is here and Tiffany is here too, I think.
Hi, kia ora.
So if you, with the committee's permission, we'll go to item 12 on the agenda, and I'll hand over Kirsty straight to Vanessa.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Vanessa will lead through the report, supported by Tiffany and myself. Thank you.
Thanks, Vanessa.
Thank you. Tēnā koutou katoa ko Vanessa Honore tōku ingoa. For the ones that I don't know, my name is Vanessa Honore. I'm a Senior Strategic Planner for the Council. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our update and for the opportunity to have a discussion. I had sent a couple of documents through to be distributed ahead. So I will take the report as read, which is the WIPA Committee Spatial Plan a progress update. And I would like to follow up on an update on what we are to do next in the project. But first, I wanted to go around and see if there are any questions on the report that was sent out. Tipene is also here to kind of speak to the document that was attached, which is WIPA Committee Spatial Plan Mana Whenua Engagement Summary to date. So yes, if there are any questions, I will be more than happy to assist or address those.
Thanks, Vanessa. So any questions anyone has? Kia ora, Tiffany, thanks for coming along. Kirsty, was there anything you wanted to add at the moment, or Tiffany?
Through you, Your Worship, if there are no questions, I think it would be helpful if Vanessa, supported by Tiffany, could just identify the next stages and how Mana Whenua and Iwi might be engaged in that. That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, go. Vanessa, there's no hands up asking questions, so we're
efficient. Let's do it. Yes. So the next stage, so as you would see actually in the report, we talked about but couple of ZUIs that we had already back in last year, and also in March, on the 3rd of March. Our next ZUI will be on the 21st of April. So the invitation have been sent around for a representative, and we want to actually get an assist, and I will encourage for all of you to take part to this next one. We have so the way of background on the 3rd of March. We looked at the scenarios and how those will need to be enriched by aspirations, Mana Whenua Iwi aspirations. We've updated actually the scenario on the base of that. We had a few discussions on how we could take actually and push this forward. And one of the outcome of that was to split our evaluation frameworks, which will be used to select either a preferred scenario or select an hybrid scenario, which is a composition of those multiple items for the 4 different scenarios that I've outlined on the 3rd page of my report. So this is where we would look at assisting during the ZUI on the 21st of defining what attribute of Maturanga Maori framework needs to be highlighted. So I would actually say this is a really important ZUI to help us really define how we actually select the scenario, how this spatial plan actually becomes a committee spatial plan. So before we looked at writing what the future of WIPA can look like, this one is really about how do we pick and choose? What are the criteria, our basis for choosing that scenario? So that's what we will be doing on the 21st of April. So Tipene, myself, and another people within the project team are busy in the background and trying to get that framework ready. We would be keen to send some documents ahead of us, so hoping to have the 14th, which is the day before we all go on a wee break. So to have some documents sent out to all attendees for their review, so that on the 21st of April, we've got 2 ZUI, one in the afternoon, one in the evening, and you can pick and choose which one. We will be actually repeating what we do in either of those 2 ZUI, so that we can actually define the evaluation framework, as I said, and then ZUI 4 following on that will be about going through the assessment and really kind of starting scoring or discussing each of those attributes chosen on the 21st and how we just selecting the scenario for ZUI 4. Any question on this?
Thanks, Vanessa.
Is that clear enough?
Yeah.
Or yeah?
Yes, fine.
Yeah.
Thank
okay,
you.
Good.
Tiffany, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Nei rā te mihi atu kia koutou ngā te koromatua koutou ngā kaikaunihira e koutou ngā mana whenua o tēnā o ngā takiwā. So thanks for the opportunity. It's really, as Vanessa said, and so the 21st will be important because the mātauranga is not something that I thought up with it, we or the team thought up in a dark room. So it was kind of dark when we put it together, but it comes from the hui that we've had and your respective environmental management plans and key documents. So that's a summary of where that will be. So that's what the 21st is about, to say, have we landed okay here? And then following that will be the hui where the evaluation takes place alongside of that multi-criteria analysis. I think that is an MCA analysis, which many of you have been part of in the past. Just so you know, we're expecting that there's going to be tensions between which scenario wins and which, or part of the scenario wins, both within each framework and across the frameworks. And that's the purpose of the evaluation framework. Just like here, let's take this for a spin and check it out. So mana whenua and iwi will be an important part of that discussion. You may be curious as to Te Taha Māori i roto ngā kōrero nei. And so we're very grateful that Shane has agreed to at least present an option or options of a reo name for the plan. That will again come out for you. I mean, he tangata hu Māori e ia, so it'll be something that he'll put together and then we'll bring out to you for your whakaaro as well. Me he whakaaro o tēnā tukuna mai, or tukuna kia Shane. If you have any ideas, send them in to Shane and he'll put that into his thinking. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, you're a Tiffany. So any questions? I think it's really obvious it's not going to be any one of those options categorically that going to come out the end. There'll be variations all the way through, and we really have got to pick the best out of each one of them to get this plan moving forward. So,
indeed.
Yep, Kirsty.
For you, Your Worship, I'd just also like to acknowledge Gayleen, Fortal, Bill and Harold, who are mana whenua iwi representatives on the project control group. So we meet monthly. They have made quite a significant contribution to the process that we've undertaken to date in terms of developing the community spatial plan and have attended a number of the previous hui. So if you have any questions too, I'm sure they will be happy to, they've got more detailed knowledge having worked with us as part of that group, and look forward to their further contributions as we move to the next step. Thank you.
Thanks, Kirsty. Okay, if there's no other questions or comments, everyone's comfortable. All right, if there's not, I will put the recommendation just to receive the report. Can I have a mover and seconder? Moved Bill and seconded Harold. All those in favour? Contrary? Carried. Thanks, Vanessa and Tiffany. Thank you for coming along. And
thank you. Kia ora.
Kia ora. So now we're on to item 10, the elections. Who's handling this? Joe, is it?
Yes.
Sorry. Yep.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you for having me here today to talk about the elections that we've got coming up in October 2022. There is a presentation attached to your report. So I was hoping just to be able to run through that this morning. So I would just share my screen. There we go. Can you see the presentation now?
No, not yet. Yep, we've got it now, Joe.
You've got it. Oh, good. Okay. So I thought I would start this morning by just running through some of the key dates for the elections coming up. So first one we've got there is the 21st of June. So that's the candidate information evening. We're going to be having that out at Mighty River Domain. So we'll start promoting that shortly. Nominations open on the 15th of July and they close at 12 noon sharp on the 12th of August. And we'll also start to be soon looking at like running in conjunction with the Electoral Commission. They'll start to be a campaign nationwide to make sure people are on the roll. If people have moved, that they've got their most up-to-date address so that we can make sure that they get their voting papers and don't have to do a special vote. So that'll start happening as well soon. And we'll be starting with our communication campaign. So election day is 8th of October, with hoping to have preliminary results announced in the afternoon and then declaration of final results sometime between the 13th and 19th of October. So this will be the first year that we have a Māori ward. It'll be one Māori ward member over the entire Waipa district. There is a method of calculation for number of Māori ward members in the Local Electoral Act, and under that we're only entitled to one. So only those on the Māori electoral roll will be entitled to vote for the Māori ward councillor. And so unfortunately the next option to change roles is in potentially likely 2023, potentially 2024. So that's not, if anyone's on the roll, that's not very helpful in terms of if they want to change over to the Māori roll to be able to vote for the Māori ward member for the local body elections. So unfortunately that doesn't really link up in terms of timing. New people that are joining the roll, they'll obviously have the option to go on the Māori ward roll if they want to. But there's not really many options at the moment for those already on that or not on that roll who are enrolled in the general. So this is just a bit of a look at our stats. We have got pretty good stats in terms of number enrolled across our district of those that are eligible. We're sitting at 93%. We have 2,487 on the Māori roll, so that'll give you an indication of how many people will be entitled to vote for that Māori ward member. And we've got that 2,837 not currently enrolled, so hopefully we'll be able to get some more of those on the roll before the roll closes. So just a bit of information on Māori ward candidates. So you don't need to be Māori, you don't, or on the Māori electoral roll, or even live in Waipa. But so you just must be a New Zealand citizen on the electoral roll somewhere, and you will have to be nominated by two electors eligible to vote for the Waipa Māori roll. So it's someone that's on the Māori roll, or two people on the Māori roll in Waipa will need to nominate any Māori ward candidate. There's just a few restrictions about being a candidate that apply across the board. They're in relation to having contracts with council over 25,000. There is a exemption process with the Office of the Auditor General. You can't be a council employee, but you could be a council employee at the time that you go through the process, and then if you were successful, you would need to resign. and being subject to court orders under Section 31 of the Protection of Property Rights Act. That's in relation to an appointment of manager when you're not considered by the family court to be able to manage your own affairs, that section. We have a standard nomination form that needs to be completed, a $200 fee for putting in your nomination, and candidates are also able to put in a picture and a candidate profile statement. The candidate profile statement can't be more than 150 words. You are able to put one version in English and one in Te Reo, but they do have to be substantially the same in terms of their messaging. And they can be 150 words in English and 150 words in Te Reo. So in terms of our communication campaign, as well as the doing some promotion to make sure people are on the roll, we will start encouraging candidates to stand, and then we will have a separate part of our campaign when we're looking at encouraging people to vote. We will be participating in the Local Government New Zealand What Makes You Tick campaign. That is a campaign that's been developed nationally with some national graphics and material, and some of them that we can adapt locally. That messaging will also, part of that LGNZ campaign, also includes Te Reo messaging as well. So what really, one of the things I wanted to talk about today is Māori participation in the local elections. So we are keen to look at doing some targeted messaging for Māori ward candidates and voters, and we will be working with our strategic partnerships team to develop a list of platforms and contacts to make sure that we're trying to get our messaging out to the right places when it needs to go out there. But really keen to just hear from you if you've got any recommendations either now or in the future as to key contacts or platforms that you think we should be targeting with our messaging. Did anyone have any thoughts on that?
Thanks, Joe. Have you finished with your presentation?
Oh, I was just as well going to mention the option for meet the candidate events, just to kind of note that we don't run council meet the candidate events, but it's, you know, if as part of looking at Māori participation in local elections, like if local groups want to run meet the candidate events for the Māori ward councillor, that might be something to start thinking about now, if there is a group out there that would like to do that, just to kind of help raise the profile and give opportunity for people to understand a bit more about the Māori ward candidate and what they stand for. And so really, any ideas from the committee now?
Thanks, Joe. The reason I just wanted you to finish your presentation was so that we can go back to the full screen, so I can see if there's. Yep.
Yes, that's much better. It's a bit difficult when you've got the presentation up, isn't it?
Yeah, so I can see. So was there any questions or any comments or anything that you can think of that we can, or suggestions that we can do to encourage participation? And that's participation across the board, really. And if you haven't got any thoughts now and you think of something, by all means, get in touch with Joe, because
yes, please.
Our participation rate in elections seems to be dropping year on or every 3 years, which is unfortunate. But I can understand the, I suppose I was going to say lack of interest, but with the changes that are coming about, it's hard to really be able to say to people what organisation they'll be standing for come come the 8th of October, but there will be a basic core of functions that carry through, obviously. Harold, you have your hand up, and then Bill.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I've just got a logistic question. You talk about the Māori roll having 2,400 odd eligible voters in it. Then you talk about the Waipa Māori roll. How is that determined? How will you determine who in the Waipa District Council on the different Māori rolls are eligible to vote?
That's something. So it is just those because when you enrol to vote, you either are eligible to decide to go on the Māori roll, and you do that, or if you are eligible to be on the Māori roll, you can also decide to be on the general roll. So that will have been a personal choice that people have made. So we get access that'll show up on our rolls, who's decided that they want to be on the Māori roll when they've enrolled, and who's decided they want to be on the general roll. So that's all personal choice, and then we get those roles.
I think the question really, though, Joe, was how do we know where the people are living on the on the electoral roll?
Yep, that'll all be in the electoral roll. There'll be hard copies of the electoral roll held in our offices.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's where you're permanently resident, Harold, is where you where you can vote.
Yeah.
Through you, Your Worship, Joe, I think it might also be helpful that we don't compile the rolls ourselves, that they're compiled by the electoral office, aren't they, and then made available to council.
Yeah. We do also have the scenario. Sometimes there are people that actually don't live in our district, so they might live in Hamilton, but they actually have a house in say Tiamuru, and then they can be on our ratepayer elector roll. So there's also that option too for people.
Bill,
just Marae, Hapu, and Iwi websites, Joe.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for your report.
Yeah.
Sorry, I should have started there.
No. Okay.
Can only do that though, Jim, if you're invited to be on those websites. Most marae only you have to whakapapa to it to allow you on.
Yes.
Okay.
Where possible.
Yeah. Thanks, Bill. Hopai.
Yes. Thanks, Joe. So I'm probably registered I'm registered. I live in Gordonton, so I'm probably registered here, but I'm on the Māori roll. And how can I change so that I'm not a resident in Waipa, but I stem from Waipa and I want to vote on the Māori roll in Waipa?
It's all about kind of where you live and where your address is on the general roll, and unless of course you have another property and you're able to eligible to vote on the ratepayer elector roll. So it's quite prescriptive in terms of who can vote in which place, and that's all done when you enrol. Or update your details. So you put your ordinary address where we know where you live. Yes. That goes in the process when you're enrolling or you're updating your details, and that's where you're eligible to vote, unless of course you have another property and you become eligible to vote on the ratepayer roll. Okay. So there's only really those two ways of being eligible.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Thanks very much, Joe.
Have you got any whānau that you can move in with, Hopai?
Yes, I have. Definitely. In Peromia. Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, Dominic.
Thank you. Joe, just following on from what Bill and Gaileen said, yeah, with our marae or hapu-based social media pages and web pages, I suggest that's a good method, and you could come through contacts here, like myself. It would be great if you had a standardized message or something, so that we don't have to start from scratch and try to think about what to write. Yeah, so it's easy enough for us to then transfer it across, make a few tweaks if we needed to for our people, and then get that out there. We've discussed that in the Iwi Waipa meeting previously, about how we can really get these people engaged, and our discussion amongst ourselves is what can we do to get that message out there. So something like that, I know we can definitely help with.
That'd be great, because if we can get a list of places that we're allowed to post our messages, then we can just be sending all that messaging around to those groups and taking advantage of those platforms. And so we'll have different posts at different times that have come out. So that'd be really, really great. That'd be awesome.
Thanks, Joe. Hey, thanks for those comments, and anything we can do to encourage people to vote, we're really looking for it. So, that's really helpful. And is there any, I suppose there will be efforts, but are there candidates that have been identified that are looking really interested? Too early yet?
No, there's some around.
Yeah, good, Gaileen.
Because this has to work, this is our first time out, so this has to work for us. We have a lot at stake.
Yeah, and building up the role as well would be really helpful in terms of numbers, unless government change the rules, which again, as I understand, they're looking at, but gets back to that discussion about what real co-governance and partnership does mean in a national context. So it's really it's got to work, and we want to make it work. Absolutely. All right. Hey, thank you for that. So if there's no other questions, just a mover and seconder to receive that report, please. Gaileen and Harold, all those in favour?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried. Thank you for that. Item 11, the annual plan project overview. Haven, Kirsty, go straight to Haven.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Haven will lead this report. Thank you.
Thanks, Haven.
Thank you, Mayor Jim. Thank you, Kirsty. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Haven. I'm in the strategy team here for those who I haven't met yet. The purpose of this report is just to provide that overview of the annual plan project. And just to provide a bit of context up front, every 3 years, you'll recall last year, we developed that long-term plan, which is essentially a big financial document that outlines all the activities and services that council will do for the next 10 years and more, and also identifies the average rates increase over each of those 10 years. And in the years when we're not doing those long-term plans, we do annual plans, and this is the first of 2 of those to come. Okay, so where are we at now? We have a draft annual plan. This council staff have reviewed all their budgets and landed with an average rates increase of 4.3%, which is really closely aligned to the long-term plan, which identified a proposed rates increase of 4.4%. So just slightly less than what that long-term plan document said. Some of the key changes, though, from that long-term plan, there's a few of them. Just the main ones, though, are the Parongia Naruto to Te Awamutu cycleway has been pushed out by 1 financial year, and that's mainly to do with getting landowner agreements in place. So staff are working to get those all across the line, and then moving forward with developing that cycleway. The other one that you might be aware of is recycling contamination. So we've had to put a little bit more budget in there to deal with some of the contamination issues we've had in those recycling bins around the district. And then I guess the third key change is Waka Kutahi. who haven't been able to fund our urban mobility program, which is setting up all those walkways and cycleways throughout Cambridge and Te Awamutu. You might be aware they've got a lot of big projects going on around the country. I think Transmission Gully has just opened. So a lot of those big projects may have gone over budget, and it's meant they've had to reprioritize things. And that funding that was sitting there for our urban mobility program isn't there for the next 3 years, but we do anticipate it will come back in afterwards. Yeah, that's what we're working towards at the moment. The other one is just a few changes to timing and some of those capital projects. I think like this is a usual thing. So those growth cells, the main ones at the moment in the district are just outside of Cambridge there. As you drive out to Hamilton past St. Peter's, I believe, there's a lot of development going on, and there's just adjustments to timing in those projects. But yeah, based on those changes, we did an assessment against our significance and engagement policy. And we did determine that it would be prudent to go out and get a feeling from our community about what they thought about some of those changes. So with that, we presented that draft annual plan and a consultation document to the Strategic Planning and Policy Committee last month, where they approved us to open up our consultation period, which is open right now. It went underway on the 18th of March, and it's open through to the 20th of April. So a couple more weeks left of consultation. We've been going through a series of online events with different parts of our community that people can register to and attend. We've got a few more of those coming up over the next week or so. So if anyone's interested, jump in on those. It's good to hear from our elected members who present those. And yeah, essentially that's where we're at. So consultation will wrap up on the 20th of April. I guess one thing to note is a lot of those meetings are online. We would have liked them to have been out and about in the community, but just our COVID protocols meant that it was a prudent approach to do it online and instead of getting out there too much face-to-face with people right now. The hearings, though, we'll see where we're at. If we're at a different stage, we might have those hearings back in the committee. So we're keeping ear of where we're at with that. Or otherwise, they will also be online. Yeah, essentially that's where we're at. So unless Kirsty or Mayor Jim or anyone else has anything to add, happy to take any questions, do my best to answer them. Just noting it's an organisational document and I might not have the context for everything in there.
Through you, Your Worship, maybe just to add about the uncertain environment that we're operating in, not only COVID, but also the inflationary pressures that we're seeing in our external environment, and acknowledging the impacts that that's having across the board in terms of supply chain issues, in terms of project prices that we're seeing those increase. And so those things potentially, are having an impact and have been factored into the annual plan, but may also have impacts that we're not yet have full knowledge of. So hence, even more so, a desire to connect with the community through this consultation period. And look, we've got a feedback form there that sort of asks prompt questions in relation to those key changes that Haven provided an overview on. But if there are other things that people feel strongly about, then we do encourage you to provide feedback to us. There is a general comment section at the end of that form. Thank you, Haven. Thanks, Kirsty.
Yeah, so I suppose just following on from Kirsty's comments, we've really, I suppose, in some ways struggled to keep the costs down. The forecast in our 10-year plan, long-term plan, was 4.4%, and the proposed average rate increase is 4.3 at the moment. But that's before we obviously have any changes through the consultation round. And yeah, look, just knowing what's going to actually happen in the world, apart from the normal inflationary problems that we've got, but with this Ukraine-Russia war that's going on, it's going to have a major global impact. So we've just really got to be careful on what's happening internationally as well as nationally. So yeah, any comments or questions anyone has? No? Okay. All right. It's a big document, but we're pretty much on track apart from those changes that the significant changes that we've identified. So it's pretty much in terms of the long-term plan.
It's been ages, Jim, since the annual plan has come to Naruto Tōpu, but we have talked about Naruto and the cycleway. But it's ages since that's come. Just thought I'll make a comment on it.
Yeah. Thanks, Galen. If that was specific on the cycleway, was that the query or
no, the plan itself. We've had a presentation on the annual plan, but I can't remember when the last time we had that, because we used to give feedback on it.
Yeah. Haven?
Yeah, I can just comment there. When our project team looked at developing up the comms and engagement team, we definitely looked at what avenues to take it to, and that one was identified. So my understanding is it did take a while to get our consultation document together. We weren't even going to engage to start with, but then we changed and did consultation, and it might have just been an issue with timing in terms of when that committee meeting or the last meeting of Iwi Tōpu was and our consultation period, but it was definitely considered. I don't know, Kirsty, if you've got anything else to add on to that, but certainly in the next annual plans and long-term plan processes, we will always consider or look to bring something to Iwi Tōpu.
Yes. Did you have any comment?
Through you, Your Worship. No, I think Haven's right. It has been a timing issue, but a valid point made, Galen, and I know that with the long-term plan, we certainly did come to both the Iwi Consultative Committee and Iwi Tōpu Waipa. So we will ensure that we capture both committees' forums moving forward. Thank you.
Kirsty.
And
Dominic. Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Dominic had his hand up, and then Hope. Did you want to make a comment?
No, it's fine. Yes.
No, that's all right. Sorry, Dominic.
Thank you. Yeah, just a question before Haven. In light of the kōrero that Mayor Jim gave earlier about the waters, about 3 waters and 4 waters, and the different proposals, and I'm looking through your the annual plan here. I'm thinking about the hit in the pocket of our people, of our ratepayers, and I was wondering whether your annual plan here includes any potential cost that's going to be passed on to water users. Is that included in part of this, in part of your forecast, or what option have you assumed has happened with the whole 3 waters and 4 waters?
Just at a high level, 3 waters, at the time of generating that long-term plan, there wasn't enough known, so that the document was generated as if we retain 3 waters in the long-term plan, and that is also how the annual plan has been developed at this stage. Until we get more clarity on how everything plays out, it's assuming status quo.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dominic. Any other questions? Okay, all right. If there's no questions, can I have a mover and seconder to receive the report? Dominic and Andrew, all those in favour?
Aye.
Contrary, carried. Now, the last item that I've got is Naruto. Bill, you were wanting to bring some issues up.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Just I thought that as Galen had said earlier, that this is the forum in which we have our partnership discussions, and so I wanted to raise the issue of Naruto. I have in a wider Iwi consultative forum, I have certainly made a submission in terms of the Apakura Runanga. But one of the, and I put a few things in there, and I'm just would be interested to get an update as to where we might be in terms of those matters, because I believe that there were submissions made on behalf of a lot of people after what occurred at Wairoto or Naruto. And I was reading in the paper that Barbara Kruger had come to see you, Jim, and I think Gary, with a proposal to import some chemicals from South Africa and put those into the roto. And there was a discussion there that said that iwi would need to be part of any decision making in that regard. But my question is, when would we be part of that? Why it was that we weren't considered to be sitting at the table when that proposal occurred? And if because there's another proposal, I think, that talks about a kayak and some zapping machine that can deal with the carp. There's lots as people try to deal with what is a problem, not of our creation, and I'm talking our in terms of Māori. It wasn't us that drained those roto and caused this problem to be there in the first place. And the other query I had, and that might be a bit long-winded, and I see Brad and Hannah are both there. So kia ora to Brad and Hannah, who have had this job, and I know that the costs have blown out even in terms of looking after the dead tuna and the dead manu that came there, and that's been done in if I could just acknowledge this, and I'm getting off the point a bit, Jim, but just acknowledge that that was done in a very culturally significant way, and I just wanted to acknowledge that both Brad and Hannah's input into that, and Hillary's actually into that. But the next one was the biggest way of protecting our waihi tapu, which it is for a lot of the mana whenua, is to stop the leaching that's occurring. And when the Conservation Board visited, the Waikato Conservation Board visited the site on Friday, I think it was, they noted that I think it's Finch Contracting, and I may be liable because we're on live line here, have a maze that they have right up to the boundary of the lake. Is there not something more that we can do to stop that agricultural contamination occurring in our waihi tapu?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. I'll hand over to Brad, and Hannah maybe can talk about the all of the issues that you've raised. But in terms of the contact that I had from Barbara Kruger's office and the salesperson, I suppose, for the chemical enzyme that they were proposing could be a solution to the problems we were having at Naruto. I certainly met with them, as I meet with anyone who's has got these ideas, and we really we've got to look for some solutions. But before we go effectively wasting your time, it's a little bit like the resource consenting applications. Everybody that comes through my door, I suppose, gets a filter put on. Is the proposition worthwhile considering in the first instance? And if so, then that kicks off the formal processes. And realistically, before wasting everybody's time, I wanted to know if that enzyme was likely to work, and we needed some scientific background. And it transpires that there's not enough research being done in a natural environment, so it's not an option. The other issue that you raised about the canoe a fish, it wasn't actually to kill the fish. My understanding was it was actually some sonar arrangement on a remotely controlled kayak that could actually determine where the fish were in the lake and what species they were, so whether they were eel or an exotic fish, but it wasn't a control method or anything else. So that issue wasn't going to impact on the fish life in the lake. But I'll hand over to Brad if he wants to make any other comment, and Hannah on the lake, and in particular that maize planting, I suppose, right up to the margin of their property.
Kia ora koutou, ko Hannah Dival, tuku ingoa, he Reserves Planning Team Leader aho o te Waipa District Council. Just wanted to introduce myself because I haven't met a few of you before. I just wanted to make a comment. I think, as Bill pointed out, there's been lots of different people involved in this discussion to date, and we certainly appreciate having worked alongside Ngāti Apakura in this response to the event over the summer. To respond to some of your immediate queries, Bill, I think Mayor Jim has covered off that response partly. I think we can't control different organisations coming to us with these novel solutions, and I guess the approach to date has been we've provided a bit of an initial response to say, thank you. In the case of the Ergozyme proposal, we were able to ascertain that we didn't have enough scientific information to support what they were doing. We did invite them to share any further trial data that they might have in the future, but these would be considered alongside other methods that might be used to improve water quality in the lake. I note that we do have our reserve management plan process due to commence this year for the Naruto Reserve Management Plan. And this will help to inform our future management and restoration options. So once we get through that process, we can look back on some of these proposals that have been put forward that might be more novel alongside some of the more possibly, scientifically backed and Mātauranga Māori principles that might inform that future restoration. So certainly we weren't intending to go and make, big decisions about what was to occur or not to occur without having input from Ngāti Apakura. However, we needed to provide an immediate response, to this proposal, and we can come back to it at a later date. In terms of your question, Bill, about the Finch land, for example, I guess this property, alongside many others that adjoin the lake, we do identify that there's actions that could be taken to improve the situation, and we do need to continue talking to those private landowners, and I'm hoping that some of those conversations too can happen alongside the reserve management plan process when we can bring some of the issues to light. Sorry, I'm just saying if there was one more query that you had. Sorry. But was there any other unanswered questions there?
I guess the only other one that I could was the submissions, and you're making responses to the submissions, and I guess I'm interested to know with those submissions what that process will entail. Is that a council process, or is it i.e. councillors, mayor process, or is it a staff process?
Sorry, Bill, is that a submission that's been made on this annual plan specifically?
No, it was made specifically in terms of Naruto or Wairoto. So the concerns that I expressed, and Apakura aren't the only ones involved in the lake, the roto. So I just wanted to mention that as well, while we were having this discussion, and a lot of our whānau and other hapu are here that are involved at Naruto. But I expressed concern about the tuna, the die-off on the tuna, and the carp have come back in a significant way the other day when we were out there, and they affect the ongoing life of our tuna there. So that's, that was one of the things I was discussing. The possibility that we can get more water into the lake is one way of that I'd like to see us explore. And that might have an effect upon the land around the lake. But what we heard the other day is that that process will, out of itself, bring about some carbon credits, because peat lake and peat soils are key in terms of carbon and filtering of carbon into the environment. And I can't remember, there were three things think that those were at least two of the ones. It's the restoration or the continued restoration of our tuna in there, and the third one I had proposed was whether we had an opportunity to put potai on the lake. And just going back to the fact that Apakura had and others had island pa on that lake, and one of those island pa is, as I'm told in terms of whakapapa, is now the reserve area and the area in which the sailing club is situated.
Yeah, kia ora, if I could, through your worship, just clarify some of that. Yeah, it was all great feedback received, Bill, and we appreciate that. And I think a lot of those conversations will be what we discuss with yourself as mana whenua partners and also other stakeholders as part of the reserve management plan. I think, you know, having everyone at the table to have those discussions will create that unity and understanding between the different parties of that site, and obviously the use of that lake, but also the restoration and of the roto itself, but also its surrounds. So that's definitely the process that we sort of envisage having that corridor. And at the moment, we're just finalising our budget through the annual plan for that piece of work, and we're looking to commence that pretty soon. Sorry, did that give you a question? So I thought I had something else to add there as well, but might have been it. Yeah.
Well, I suppose from oh, sorry, Galen, you go.
So I just wanted to, so Naruto has maintained its own mana around Naruto, and this is stemmed from Uncle Fred Purima in his time. So one of the things that Uncle Fred was always very apprehensive about in Naruto, and that is the lowering of the water levels at Naruto. He was quite opposed to that. So Naruto has always stood by that stance, and that's sheerly through the historical, because it stems back to Uanuku, and then it stems back to the kaitiaki of that time. And so I just wanted to remind everybody that's always been the stance of Naruto, and it's the water levels at Naruto.
Thanks, Galen. And I suppose leading on from that, and it's just not Naruto, but it's all of our peat lakes have now had their water levels set in terms of a regional resource consent. And so, you know, in the past, the water levels were kept high in Naruto over the summer period and then drained out over the winter, which is the complete reverse of what happens naturally, but that has now been remedied in terms of setting the water level. People around that own property around the lake, and finches have been mentioned here, that if they continue to cultivate the peat soils around the lake, will only be able to do that for a short period of time, because every time you cultivate the peat soil, they oxidize and shrink effectively. So they will, in effect, be extending the size of Naruto, because the lake will actually flood onto their property. And that's what's happened on the inlet end, I suppose, of the lake, where a large proportion of that dairy farm that adjoins the lake there is now pretty much unusable over the winter period because of the flooding that occurs there. I've been involved personally over probably 30 years trying to improve the quality of the water in Lake Naruto and other peat lakes around the district, and councils invested really heavily in sorting out boundary issues, I suppose, doing boundary swaps to try and get the best esplanade or reserve around the lake that we can, fencing it off, planting it, and putting in silt traps and things like that. But there's still a huge amount of work that needs to be done. And you're right, Bill, it's nothing that Iwi have done that has made that water deteriorate. It's runoff from farming activities around the lake, whether it be direct from cow sheds or fertilizer or just stock runoff. So until we can control that, then chances of a notable improvement is probably pretty slim. And I've dealt with all sorts of experts over the years that have come up with ideas, some of which I thought would work, but for various reasons, scientists said no, and from a cultural perspective may not have been appropriate, such as dredging the sediment, which is basically farm effluent really at the bottom of the lake and topsoil that's run off because of the cultivation of those areas around the lake. But there are issues, practical and cultural, that dredging it may not have been an option. But looking at it, and with my experience, it's going to be something radical that needs to be done if we're going to ever try and get that lake back to a reasonably environmentally sustainable system. But anyway, look, we're open to any suggestions, and it's a public meeting, so every person that comes up with an idea, I'm more than interested to hear what they've got to say. And if there's a skerrick of a possibility in that option, then I'm more than happy to forward that through and consult, obviously, with mana whenua. Marcus, I see you've got your hand up.
I was out there the other day too, and I have to agree with Bill. The amount of fish there was just incredible across the bridge. But I'm just wondering, since the fish are so long, why don't we just throw a couple of nets in and haul them out? I mean, at least that, we'll probably pull out a couple of hundred pretty easy. And it's simple things like that. Like, my kids would love to have a go at doing it.
Well, if you get Bill's tick off, go for your lot. as long as you don't put them back once you've caught them.
I wondered whether we could mix them with egg and make them into, because they're so small at the moment. But I'm told by the experts that each male adult produces, I think it's 10,000 offspring, and there were so many there. They look like whitebait skipping out of there. The real plus is that, of course, the manu were there, and they were herding them into a place and having a wonderful feed. And I just wondered whether, they look so much like whitebait, and I always like a whitebait fritter. So I wondered about you could catch them, Marcus, or the kids could catch them, and whether we could use them as whitebait. But in answer to that question, they are that small. You'd think that would be the way you could do it. But I know that there's some key people that have studied carp and koi carp for some period of time, and I think I was one of the things that came up the other day is that we might not be able to do anything about it. And that just about brought tears to my eyes, because I knew that they do affect our tuna. So how will we protect our tuna in the future in that site, which is as I've said, waihi tapu to us, and they are part of the protection of that lake for us. How do we protect them if we let the carp go run muck there?
It's interesting, isn't it? And one of the ideas that was put forward by, and unfortunately he's now deceased, but it was Dr. Charles Mitchell, who's was working on research to bring back whitebait inanga into the Waikato catchment. But his theory was that the best way to control the exotic fish in there when they're small like that is to restock Naruto with large tuna that will actually feed on them and eat them. But of course, at the moment, the water quality gets that bad that we end up killing off the predatory tuna that could take real advantage of all of those small carp fry that are in the lake at the moment. So somehow we've got to get the water quality to a standard that tuna can survive in there, take the big ones out, which can't be eaten or managed by the tuna, and try and get a natural system going again. But that relies on stopping that toxic algal bloom over the summer period, because it just wipes out the tuna, and obviously the eggs of those carp survive.
Yeah, if I could, through you, Your Worship, we're obviously working alongside yourself, Bill, with things like the Waipa Peak Lakes Accord and our Waikato Regional Council partners as well. And so we, just aligning our priorities with those groups. The Regional Council talks about not being one of their priorities currently, but we do know that there is, around 8 to 9 tonne worth of pest fish in Wairoto or Naruto. So yeah, certainly definitely open to all those possibilities. And yeah, as I said, as soon as we get the corridor going around our reserve management plan, hopefully we can actually start to formalise some of that direction with all of those partners at the table.
All right.
Thanks, Jim, for this corridor. I thought that as everyone else in the district had an opportunity, then we should certainly raise it here at ICC as well, and get people's thoughts and views going forward. So thanks for that time. Thanks to Brad and Hannah for coming on to the call as well.
Thanks, Bill. It's definitely one of those treasures for all of us in Waipa, and we just don't want to see it end up as another flat paddock, which is what has happened to a number of lakes through the Waipa area over many years. But yeah, so council's really mindful of what the problems are, but we are really short on solutions at the moment. So it's best to keep an open mind, I think, as these options come up, and you never know what comes out of some of these discussions. So, kia ora, thanks for bringing it up once again. Okay, if there's no further questions or comments, I would go, Shane, could you close the meeting for us and thank everybody for your attendance? Hopefully we're back together in person next time.
Koe tērā ko te tūmana ko e tukoro matua, he wā tōna, he loto I tēnei tau. Ka hui tātou, kanohi ki te kanohi, ko iwi ki te koi. Hoi nō rā e auku koro heke, e auku ruru he tēnei rā te mihi kia kūtau, whakawhaiti hea mai ne, he whakakanohi anō ki rā ngā whakaaro, o ngā mana whenua o ngā iwi kāinga te iwi e karanga hea nei ko tangata whenu. O reire mihana ki tēnā o kutau, o tira ngā me mahou, ka tahi anō ka uru mai ki roto I ngā whakahaerehanga, Gabriel, e te tuhine tēnā koe, te mana o te puari matua o Maniapoto, o tira kia koe Dominic Tumuana, koe rā e whakakanohi mai nei, tō tātou maunga I aka ke puku. Whanua huri no e ngā kaimahi o tira, e ngā kai kaunihera, te koro matua tēnā koutou. Whanua kia ino e tātou. So we'll close our meeting off with a prayer, and hopefully it might resolve many of the discussion points we're going on here. We can all but try. But in these matters, ask that for those of you of that inclination to join in communicating with the God or the gods of your understanding by whatever name or notion that you understand it or them to be, as we bring this meeting to a close. He unuhanga anuku, he unuhanga arangi, he māreretanga, he māunutanga ko te pō kātu. He pō aha te pō, he pō he te pō. Kua wehe atu te pō ki tua o pālau ki te hui huinga o te kahurangi o tira, te wheriko o te tapu ki te ahurei o te mana. Ko te ao mārama, kua tātaka mai ki runga ki ngā maunga tū te ao, tū te pō, kua he kei hora ki roto I ngā whāwhārua, ki roto I ngā kōawaua, tai noa mai rā ki o tātou kāinga maha, ki o tātou tuahutanga kia tātou anō kira. Tātou te pitoura e hui nei, e manaki nei ngā kaupapa kia koke e whakamua, ngā iwi katoa. No reira, e te ao mārama, taka mai I runga I raro I roto I waho, I tua. Kia ti toko te ao mārama ki runga I o tātou tūmanako, e manako hi atu nei, turuturu ofiti whakamaua kia tēnā haumi e hui e tai.
You're a shame. Okay, catch up soon, everyone.
Kia ora.
Okay. Gary, we've got 5 minutes to our next one.
Yeah, I know.
Eat quickly.
Yeah.
All right, kia ora.
Thanks, Jim.
Kia ora.
Thanks,
See you
Gary.
soon.
See you, Chuck.